Namo Phat. Thanks so much for joining me for our daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This beautiful sound calls us back to our true home. The first mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life, I vow to cultivate compassion and learn ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. I'm determined not to kill, not to let others kill, and not to condone any act of killing in the world, in my thinking, or in my way of life. For our Dharma lessons, we're reading Ajahn Munindo's book, Unexpected Freedom. We're continuing a chapter called When We Fall in Love, with a section, Falling in Love. It's possible that if there is an absence of love in our lives, we try with our divided minds to become more loving. We think of our unloving traits as things that we have to fix. However, when we look at what it is, without any sense that it should be some other way, we can sense this very tendency to divide ourselves off from what is. If we approach our lives in this way, cultivating undivided attention to the present moment, we are capable of being loving in each moment. If we live this way, and one day a person appears and that special magic happens whereby fear falls away and the beauty that we call loving manifests, then maybe we won't divide our hearts and minds and start struggling to hold on to this experience. Maybe we won't spoil it. We will be loving. We will delight in and be strengthened and even transformed by the intensity of that experience. The intensity of that beauty and joy has the power to transform the habit of selfishness. The momentum of my way can be dissolved by the radiant warmth of love, with all of its intensity and all of its enthusiasm and all of its beauty undenied. However, for most of us, most of the time, this spontaneous capacity for loving is not the reality that we live with. We find that we are not able to abide as that loving reality, and so it is that we fall in love. What happens then when we fall in love? The intensity and enthusiasm of that moment when fear falls away and when the natural undivided state becomes conscious turns our lives upside down. From the point of view of me, from the unawakened personality's perspective, that enthusiasm is totally threatening. It feels like it could shatter me. It becomes intolerable. We can't sleep, can't eat, and feel we're being driven mad. If we're not suitably prepared for such intensity, then the very pleasure of loving itself triggers the habit to grasp and contract. The pleasure is so beautiful that I feel I can't help but want it to last. The momentum of my way is thus expressed as a default mechanism of narrowing attention. Instead of opening in wonder at the beauty of the experience and simply being it, we default to the momentum of my way, to the how can I have it? Pointing this out is not to judge that momentum, but to help us consider it and recognize it as a habit. To try and grasp at pleasure is not an obligation. It's a habit. It's a choice that we make, and therefore we can also choose to exercise the heart's ability to inhibit that contraction. When we contract around desire, grasping its object, thinking, I want to make this pleasure last, we condition the arising of the exactly equal and opposite experience of, I'm afraid it won't last. These two experiences of wanting the pleasure to last and fearing that it won't go together like the front and back of a hand. We can't have one without the other. The sadness of this situation is that by grasping the desire to make it last, we lose the loving. We lose the loving in its pure, natural form. The contracted heart no longer has the capacity to contain our enthusiasm, and so it leaps out and lands on the other person. This is a subjective experience as the open-hearted, beautiful state is lost. Because of the habit of desire and the consequent fear, the heart energy leaps out and lands on the object, whether it's a thing in a shop that we feel we must have, or another person, or an ideal, or state of mind. Assuming that it's another person, the consequence of this leaping out is a thought, I can't live without you. And that's true. I can't live without you because I don't have my heart anymore. You've got at least half of it. So I'll do anything to have you. That's what the heart feels and what the mind tends to believe. The unawakened personality cannot live without the other, for it feels like death. Though from the perspective of the awakened personality, all this would be seen as a state of diminished responsibility. Now, to say this is not to diminish the experience, we all have the experience and we all have to learn from it. But we should also recognize that in this experience, we betray ourselves and project our heart's passion and enthusiasm onto another object or another person. Subsequently, we have to suffer the consequences of having betrayed ourselves. Believing that I cannot simply trust my own heart's capacity for loving, so I will project it onto you and expect you to carry it for me, we fall in love. This is losing ourselves, and there's an intoxication in this experience. If we make a contract with each other, two unawakened personalities deciding to collude with this delusion, then when the two of us get together in equally deluded states, it can feel like one whole. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be at peace. Namo Adida Phat. Thanks so much for joining me today.